Hello and welcome to the Grow, Transform, Evolve podcast, where we discuss all things personal and professional development. Welcome to episode number 1, and I'm quite happy to kick. Well, I'm sorry, this is actually episode number 2, folks. Sorry about that. I actually did my interview with Abraham Lincoln last week on episode 1. This is actually episode 2, and I have a great guest, a great topic. The topic is brain psychology and performance, athletics, business, personal and professional life, whatever that is, with actually a childhood friend of mine, Mark Marshall. And we're going to spend some time talking about, again, brain performance and brain psychology and performance, and how that can help us in our personal and professional lives. And I think this is really relevant now because, as I always say, we're in a fast-paced, high-tech, ever-evolving world. Change is hitting us faster than ever. Adversity striking us deeper. And the speed at which we need to make decisions is getting shorter and shorter. So how our brain functions during these difficult, uncertain, ambiguous, and adverse times is going to be a key to our success. And our guest today is a gentleman named Mark Marshall, personal friend. Think the world of him, and I'll be introducing him in a bit. His credentials are outstanding. But first, one of the traditions here at Grow, Transform, and Evolve is kicking off the podcast with a quote of the day. And this quote typically ties into the topic of what we're going to speak about too. And the quote is from Ralph Waldo Emerson. And it states that fear defeats more people than any other one thing in the world. And with, again, our crazy world today, the fear factor has driven exponentially. So I think Mark can share some great insights to help us, face our fears, overcome them, and not just survive these crazy times, but thrive in them. I'm going to pop Mark up on the screen. How you doing today, Mark?
Good. How are you?
Good. Well, I told everyone we were personal friends, and I'm going to give you some accolades and kudos. So don't let it get to your head. Mark, we try not to compliment each other too much because we don't want to go to each other's heads. But I will say this: I'm quite impressed with this guy. We're both from the Pittsburgh area, from a coal mining town, very humble beginnings, right, Mark?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm gonna fess this out. I hope you don't mind me stating this. We probably weren't the best students in high school, right? We were athletics and
yeah.
we were athletes. What's that?
That's an understatement.
Yeah, we were athletes. We were focused on that bit. Out in our afterlives, we became quite successful in the world in which we worked. But Mark really took it to the extra level, and I knew a lot of his credentials, but not all his credentials in total. So Mark Marshall, let me introduce Mark. He has a PhD in industrial and organizational psychology, emphasis on human performance. He's currently a rare disease account executive in the healthcare arena, former Division I wrestler at Indiana State University. And you guys wrestled some of the big boys, right, Mark? The Big Ten guys.
Yeah, we were one of the top 10 teams in the country at D1. Yeah, we wrestled Oklahoma and Notre Dame and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and he accumulated over 100 wins in D1. He's currently assistant wrestling coach and adjunct professor at Seton Hill. He teaches a class on sports psychology, which I knew of. He's brought me in to speak to his class every year for the last 4 years. He's USA Veterans National Champion and World Champion in freestyle wrestling, private pilot, and currently practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he actually also, we're going to talk about this as well, too. He is a heart attack survivor, a very serious one at that. And we're going to touch base with that a little bit. But with all your credentials and everything you do, when do you have time to enjoy your life, enjoy your wife, and get some downtime?
Well, I think I do enjoy it. I mean, I enjoy it all. And I sort of how I'm wired, I think that's part of my day is being busy, and I like being busy and doing different things. But I think that's one of the most important things that you talk about is you have to step away from what you do and make sure I'm spending the right time with my wife and so forth, and not just dedicating myself to performance.
Yeah, you need that downtime. That downtime's when you rejuice, so to speak. So,
right.
But yeah, if for all of you who know of the DISC survey, or a behavioral survey, it's called DISC. Mark scores about 1,000 out of 100 on the high dominant style. So that's really type A personality. But he's a great guy too. Has great people skills as well too. So. As I said earlier, we're in this fast-paced, high-tech, ever-evolving world with this whole, even before this whole COVID nonsense, came about, I always stated we're heading into unprecedented times where, it's change, adversity, uncertainty, different generations are coming into the workplace, creating a lot of angst. I really want to focus today on your this topic of brain psychology and performance, and how that can help people in both their personal and professional lives, and maybe athletics as well too. So really cover the gamut of our listeners. So is there anything first and foremost I missed in your background?
No, you covered everything.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about a degree in industrial psychology, organizational psychology, emphasis on human performance, and this whole topic about brain function, brain psychology and performance.
Yeah, I mean, sort of, this goes back long before I even went to school, that there was always something intriguing about psychology to me. And
Likewise.
even, through high school and college, I would read at that time what they had in related to performance psychology books as much as I could, because I was just intrigued by it. I always wanted to see, and it all started actually from the athletic side on what am I missing? I put together this arsenal of tools to be a good athlete. What am I missing? And that was sort of the missing link. But so the IO is basically, when you look at it from an academic side, it's workplace behaviors and making everybody better at what they do. The industrial part is sort of the molecule part of the business, and then the organizational part is more of the broad, bigger spectrum of coaching an organization as a whole. So they both overlap with what they do. And when you look at a degree like this, I view it, so I was able to focus on human performance because I thought that being an executive coach, it was a good fit to be an executive coach along the way.
Right.
And so it was, and then they let you sort of design your own program to fit exactly what I was looking for, which was phenomenal.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about brain psychology. What is it, and why is it so important, and how might that transition into personal and professional life?
Well, what I think that a lot of people truly underestimate how powerful the mind is.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And it's, look, I coach athletes and I teach sports psychology, and it's funny. There's a group of people who sort of get it, they understand it, and they're absorbed by it. And then there's another group of people, they look at you like a deer in headlights. What does this mean, and how is this going to help me? And
psychology, we're getting at psychology. I'm in sales. How's this tie to me?
The thing about, I'm in sales, but everything is you can transfer from one to another very easily. And that's what I let them know. I said, the students in my class, if you're not an athlete, that's perfectly fine.
Right.
The skills I'm going to teach you is very transferable to anything that you do in life. So the very first question I always ask the class the first time that we meet is, we talk about the mental and physical side of being not only an athlete, just say you're in corporate America also, and the question is what percentage of that is the mental side? And there's no wrong answer. It's whatever they think it is, that's perfectly fine. And you hear 50-50, 70-30, 30-70. And there's a array of answers, and then I say, as everybody gives me their opinion, I go, well, look, my opinion is, if you want to be that 1%, you want to function with all pistons firing, you have to be on 100% physical and 100% mental. And those are you're going to see those are the people that sort of move a little quicker to get what they want. But
I think it's a point of differentiation today, whether it's athletics or business. If again, we're getting hit with all these distractions now, this fear, as I said in that quote by earlier by Emerson, the opportunity to fall into a negative mental state is intensified. If I'm not, would you agree with that?
Times 10, easily. Yeah, absolutely.
So whether you're in athletics, whether you're in a business world, your personal, professional life, raising that mental game is key. So tell me some things. What can you do to raise your mental game, so to speak?
Well, I think one of the very first things is understand that you're going to go through these times and not be surprised by it. Okay. Your goal is obviously to go through as much good times as you can, but you have to be ready for something that you don't see coming by just the coach thing. I mean, I don't think anybody's seen that the way it transferred over here. But the first thing is understand and accept it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think the second thing is understand. So with that, when that comes in, there's going to be a lot of change involved.
Yeah.
And I think change, it's one of those things where you have to be very, very open-minded with. There's a lot of people up here who just do not like change by any means.
Right.
And, they need to change the way that they look at this.
Yeah.
So I think, with everything that's going on, I think that, accepting change, understanding distraction is just part of this process, and understanding and how to reframe or look at it a different way now.
Right.
Okay. Because now your game plan is going to change.
Right. I have two questions to build off that. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more with the how what's your perception of adversity or change or uncertainty and whatnot. I almost use similar words to you in my book, In Defense of Adversity, where I talk about when adversity strikes, you must first accept that is a part of a life.
Right.
You're not going to hide from it. You're not going to avoid it. And then secondly, acknowledge that it's a chance for me to learn, grow, and transform. Hence a lot of the reason for the title of my podcast. Everything offers us the opportunity. Every experience, every life experience, a lot good and bad, allows us the opportunity to grow, transform, and evolve. So I think the acceptance alone, I think there's a tie to brain functionality. Help me understand if this is true. I talk about two parts of the brain, the limbic system and the cortex. The limbic system is our emotional brain. That's where freeze, flight, and fight arise from. That's our emotional brain. It does not grow, transform, or evolve through time. When we're functioning in that limbic state, our response is going to be freeze, fight, or flight, or combination of those. The cortex is the part of our brain that does grow, transform, and evolve through our learnings, through our training, through our schooling, through life experiences, both good and bad. Help me understand if this is correct. If I'm able to accept that adversity, change, uncertainty is a part of life, isn't that a way to keep my mind functioning in that cortex rational part of the brain, because I'm ready to learn, I'm ready to face it, I can access options to survive these times versus thrive in them, or just thrive in these times, not just survive them?
Yeah, I think one thing before that is, I think everybody needs to understand first that your brain will do everything it can to protect itself. So it will always, you're always going to have that defense up front. Okay. Which is a natural response. The body, the brain will do whatever it can to protect itself. And I think following what you said, you have to understand that your initial thought or your initial reaction to something is to protect itself. But then after that, that's when it comes into, okay, you got to be more, use your cortex more on able to understand and work your way out of it.
Right.
So you're dead on.
What are some things to break down that natural protection, so to speak?
I think one of the first things is, from reading the way you're asking me this question, is I'm not sure if you're going to break it down. I think it's just sort of a natural response, of protection. And no matter what study you read, and when it comes to the body or mind, your body will always protect itself. And that's sort of part of why you go into that fight or flight mode.
Right.
Your body's going to react. You're either going to stand there, you're going to face it, or look, if it's a bear, I'm gone. I'm running. So. But I think you have to understand that you're going to identify that's part of this process. Right.
And I think, let me ask you this, does emotional intelligence come into play with that brain psychology? My thoughts are, one of the attributes associated with people with high emotional intelligence is intrapersonal skills, high knowledge about themselves, how they behave, how they communicate, how they deal with change, risk, and conflict and adversity, how they're motivated. Because the more I can understand these attributes in myself, the more I'm going to be able to self-manage. So I guess if I know those things entering my world that can cause that defense mechanism immediately, more knowledge of that will enable me to recognize it and work through it. Is that fair to say?
Well, yeah. So it's not only to understand, when it comes to emotional intelligence, is understanding yourself, but it's having an emotional intelligence for other people as well.
Right. The interpersonal skills.
So in that, we experience that all the time in the wrestling room. If something happens to someone, the first thing we do, we don't go on attack mode. because we try to understand what's going on, because there could be something very personal going on in their lives. Maybe they just got news their father or mom, got sick, or something happened that's, they're sort of just reserved, and they never brought it forward because they didn't think it was the right thing to do. But so I think it's really important for us to understand ourselves, but you also have to be able to look at other people, and sometimes you can read their face. The body language is really big on how they present themselves, because I can tell when someone walks in a room, I can tell if something bothering them. Now, pull them to the side and say, "What's going on? You don't look on today." But and probably 9 times out of 10, they, "Well, coach, I'm dealing with this issue or that issue." But again, going back to emotional intelligence, the key is understanding yourself, but having the ability to understanding somebody else's emotions too, before you maybe go on to try to discipline them for whatever reason.
Right. There's several avenues here. I mean, as Mark stated, EQ consists of many, attributes. Your intrapersonal skills, interpersonal skills. Intrapersonal skills is knowledge of yourself, deep knowledge of yourself. Interpersonal skills is also understanding those people you're engaging with, whether you're leading them, whether you're coaching them, or whether they're customers or they're just a teammate or spouse or significant other. The more you can understand how they communicate, behave, deal with change, risk, conflict, adversity, make decisions, the better you're going to understand them, get along. So I'm gathering to say everybody's different, right, Mark? Everybody has different fingerprints, different DNA. We're all different in how we're going to deal with adverse situations.
Right. And I also think that when you look at emotional intelligence, I think it plays a big role in, like, when you look at, as coaches 20, 30 years ago, it was more like a very cookie cutter approach to coaching. One size sort of fits all. Okay. What we've been learned is that as a coach, it's more of a scientific approach to it, where we have to understand each of our athletes, their behaviors, what motivates them, because how you react to someone, one person could be totally different than how you react to somebody else. There's some people, like I'm a type A. I want bullet points, very to the point. Tell me what you want, and I get it. But
be brief, be bright, be gone.
Exactly. But there's some athletes out there that you have to, in a sense, not, I think, not pacify, but just, it's more of a dialogue saying, "Look, I get it, you're struggling, you're going through some tough times right now. I want to let you know that I'm going to go through this journey with you. I'm here right by your side. Whatever you need, you let me know. If you need a one-on-one, you need me as a sounding board, I'm here for you." So, so everybody's different on how you, and I think that's a big part of when I know you do your the DISC survey, and I think that's a good tool for a lot of coaches to use. So there might be something on that report that maybe coaches don't know about on how they respond to certain things. So I think it's a more science-based approach now than what it used to be.
Well, it's key what Mark's saying now, folks, because what Mark is doing in a way, remember I mentioned earlier the cortex and the limbic system. The cortex is your rational thinking brain. That's where you want to be typically all the time, especially when adversity strikes or when you're in an intense situation, game day situation, workplace situation. You want to function in that rational part of the brain. The limbic system, again, is our emotional brain. That's where freeze, fight, or flight comes from. And you obviously can't solve problems when you're angry, when you're shut down, when you're worried. So what Mark's doing here by taking that approach is keeping his athletes in that cortex part of the brain, right, Mark? By you keeping them calm, cool, you're helping them stay in that rational part of the brain. Folks, if Mark, he let his type A personality get the better of him, he got angry, he is no longer productive, right, Mark? You're no longer functioning because you're angry. You're angry. You're in that emotional state. And in turn, you can put your athlete in that state too, right? You can put them in a shutdown or angry. So now, folks, neither one of them are productive. So it's imperative that Mark stay in that brain, optimal brain, rational thinking state. And it's imperative, despite what his athlete or colleague or customer might be dealing with, you keep them in that rational part of their brain too, because when you're both in that emotional state, you're no longer productive. So that's a key piece there, Mark. And just full disclosure, we ran those DISC surveys on Mark's wrestling team, and that helped you and Coach Tucker pretty much, right, Mark?
Yeah. Coach Tucker is the head coach of Seton Hill University, and we've worked very well together. He sort of relies on me to work on the mental side, and he does sort of the instructing and so forth. But one of the things that we found interesting, there was a lot of some of the results that it put out. We were sort of surprised at, because
Yeah,
we assumed without any type of data that this person was this way.
that's right. That's right.
He was more of a bullet point kind of, get to the point and move on. But lo and behold, when they took the survey, we're like, wow, we didn't see that.
Right.
So we made adjustments on our end
Right.
to be a better coach.
Right. Now, folks, think about, once again, the productivity he will get out of each athlete and the productivity the entire team can get functioning as an entire team when they're all in that rational state of mind. And this doesn't just tie to athletes. It ties to the workplace, people you're leading, managing, key decision makers, buyers. If you're in a sales role, if you have a tendency, which this happens with sales folks a lot, is in irritating your customer. They shut down, they get angry. Right. You're not going to make the sale. You're no longer in that, he or she is no longer in that rational state anymore. So it's imperative, whether you're in sales, leadership, a personal, professional life, that you're functioning on that optimal brain state, and those people with whom you're engaging are as well too. And that's when you're going to be able to solve problems, make wise decisions, say the right things, and think creatively, think out of the box.
Going back, when you talked about, for example, the sales role, using your rational brain, that I think especially in the sales role, I'm a big advocate in watching body language when I'm sitting in front of the customer. And again, if you're not in that rational state, I don't think you're going to pick these little cues up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If he's looking at the clock, if he's looking at, at his wristwatch, that's an indicator for me.
That's right.
Get to my point. Make my point and move on. So again, you have to be in that rational state of mind to be aware of everything that's going on.
Right.
To be more productive.
Right. And I see that a lot when I do field work with sales reps, when they don't have the proper training, or they forgot the training, when a customer gives them that objection, that no, or the pushback,
right?
They're not trained on it, or they fall in that emotional state. They automatically start sweating, they push back, they get angry, they shut down, they don't know how to respond. And that irritates that key decision maker, that buyer, even more. So staying in that rational state is key to everything. Since I started researching this for my book, I've talked to you. It's changed my life. Trying up that brain psychology part of my life. It's a work in progress. It always is for people, right, Mark? I'm sure things don't happen immediately. So.
Right. Yeah. And that no, in a sales position, that no is actually a great opportunity for you to keep in with the dialogue. He's throwing out an objection for you. He's not telling you to leave.
Yeah.
So you need to look at that a little differently, I think, than a lot of people do. Yeah. They take it too personal.
Yeah. And the only way you're going to recognize that and be able to respond accordingly and fall back on your tools is if you're in that rational state of mind.
Right.
Going back to the different personality types we talked about, Coach Vince Lombardi, one of the winningest football coaches ever, had a great quote. I'm going to paraphrase a bit. It was something to the extent of, the key to his success was he needed to learn how to motivate and lead and communicate with 40 different men, 40 different ways.
Right.
He knew the hot buttons to push on certain players, who he could yell at, who he could deal with one-on-one. I know you and I are different personality types, and Mark and I played athletics together. I know coaches that would approach him a certain way wouldn't work with me, and vice versa. Coaches with things that would work with me wouldn't work with him. So a good coach really understood that dynamic in he and I. And that's the same for you in engaging with customers, engaging on a team, or as a leader. Not all people are alike. Do you think there's a generational dynamic that's hitting now, Mark? I mean, look, we have I don't know all of them, Gen Y, Gen X, boomers, all in the workplace now. Is that a factor? Do things change with brain psychology? Is it becoming more relevant now than ever because of the younger generations?
I think it will always be important.
Mm-hmm.
As the generations go on, maybe it can be even more important. But yeah, are they different than we growing up in the way they think? Sure, yeah, absolutely they are. But it's not a bad thing. I think a lot of these guys get sort of a bad rap, to being Gen X or Gen Y, and it's like we've talked before. A lot of these Gen X, Gen Y, they ask more questions than we used to. We were more like, is that what you said? That's what we're going to do. But now they're a little bit different. Well, why do I want to do it?
Right.
bad thing. They just truly want to know why.
Exactly. I heard that in a meeting, that exact thing in a meeting where it was a mixed generational dynamic, and a boomer raised her hand and she's like, why, when I ask them to do something, they always ask why, always ask why. And, she was mad. She's like, you're confronting me, and I feel the tension in a room, and a Gen Xer or whatever, Gen Y-er raised her hand. She goes, you know why we ask why? Because we want to know.
You want to know. And there's nothing wrong with that.
That's actually very good.
And a lot of people think that they're testing you, or, and that's not the case. You know what I mean? Like I get, I'm in front of, I teach the largest class at the university. For whatever reason, they're drawn to, maybe it's easy. Maybe they have an easy professor. I have no idea. But they all, I hear it all the time, why are we talking about this? How's it going to be? And then I'll tell them the benefits to them. I never criticize the why, and I don't take it personal, because I always tell them, look, psychology is very subjective. I can look at it one way and you can look at it, a totally different way. The key is what way it's going to work for you to perform at a higher level.
Right. That ties to the different personality types. This reminds me of a story, all that we're talking about, the EQ, the understanding different styles, and for a coach functioning at the highest level and recognizing, in this instance, her team in a situational dynamic of a big basketball game. I think you know who Pat Summitt is, right?
Tennessee.
Yeah, Pat Summitt was a former winningest coach with the University of Tennessee volunteer women's basketball team. She has since passed. I've seen her speak many times, and she's absolutely, absolutely fantastic. She told a story. It was a game. Tennessee was in a national championship game. They were their arch rival, Connecticut. 3 seconds left on the clock. Tennessee's down 1. They have the ball. They're on the Connecticut side of the court. So Pat Summitt calls a timeout to set the last play. That particular year, she had a All-American point guard who she set that final play up for. That was her bread and butter girl, and she was going to win the game. When Pat Summitt called the play and looked at that point guard immediately looked down at her shoes, lost eye contact. What do you think Pat Summitt did?
Send it to somebody else.
Change the play, exactly. Set it up for someone else. And she actually did that, and they won the game, won the national championship.
Right. So what you're talking, that's reading body language.
Exactly.
She read that person was not confident to make that shot.
Exactly.
Go to the next person who is.
Exactly. And this is the beauty of a high EQ coach, in this instance, Pat Summitt, who was very astute of herself. She was in that rational state in this very pressure-packed environment, kept her train of thought, understood the situation going on, and recognized where her players were. And that is a key. And she most likely would not have won. She could maybe have not won that game. She would have ignored, what that point guard did, gave it to her, and they lost the game. So that's an example of where this brain psychology can really come into place, not to help someone succeed, but help a team succeed, especially in a pressure-packed situation like we're in now in many ways. Speaking of pressure-packed situations, I want to share, Mark, we're going to have Mark talk a little bit about, maybe we can tie some of the brain functionality piece to this, but Mark actually suffered, and this is the reason I'm sharing the story. It's quite inspirational. I think Mark can share a lot of insights into folks who have suffered severe diseases or fallbacks. Mark actually suffered he's a massive heart attack survivor. And I'd like to know, Mark, tell us a little bit about that day, if you don't mind, and how the brain psychology played into that. Do you think that helped you not only survive this heart attack, but come back so strongly?
Well, yeah. So there's a mental side to that. Initially, it was 100% physical. You know what I mean? We were at practice one day, and it was one of those days where a lot of live wrestling, and I was wrestling one of the athletes. And it was the first period, and I just sort of felt off a little bit. Yeah. There were some things there I could have hit that, what I usually would do. I sort of just backed off of it. And I thought, well, maybe the room's hot. Maybe I'm a little dehydrated, whatever it would be. Went in the second period, and as it progressed, I started feeling a little bit worse. Everything was sort of like slow motion for me. We got to the third period, and I told the athlete, I said, hey, you know what? Hang on a minute. I need to take a break. And I looked, we have these big glass windows in our wrestling room, and I looked out. The only thing in my mind said, get out.
Yeah.
Get out of that room. And I took one, and I made it one step, and I dropped.
Wow.
And luckily, Coach Tucker, he's CPR certified.
Were you out at that time? You were totally out of it?
I remember falling, and that's all I remember.
Wow.
Okay. Until a little later in the story, it's sort of funny now, but I guess it wasn't then. So Coach Tucker come over, started CPR immediately.
Wow.
They had called the trainer. He always carries an AED in his golf cart. He come down because I flatlined twice.
Wow.
They hit me with it. I remember getting hit with it because how you see it on TV, your body jumps.
Yeah.
Your body does jump. Trust me, and it
Wow.
really shocks you.
Yeah.
And then I flatlined again. They hit me again. Then the second time, by then the paramedics came, and they hit me with adrenaline. And they said when they hit me with adrenaline, I tried getting up and said, because it was amazing. I said, hey, I feel better. Get the guys in. Let's resume practice. And they're like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So that's when they start tying me to the board, and it took me out.
That's Mark for you. That's the guy I know.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. So that's the physical part. I don't think there was nothing I could have done from a mental standpoint at that point. My body was just trying to survive. Okay.
Yeah.
But after that, you go and so I had to have surgery the very next day and so forth. And that's when the mental side had to kick in. Okay. I looked at everything, and I'll tell you what it does. It's one of those things where, you're best when you're broken, because it gives you time to reflect and say, okay, look at my life. What am I doing here?
Yeah.
Why am I wasting my time with this or with that? What's really important to me? Okay.
Right.
And it sort of gives you a reset, and it did give me a reset. And so I did give myself like 12 hours to be, complain and why me and
Yeah.
because it was shocking to me because, I work out every day. I run, I for the most part, a good diet, and
still wrestle, still compete.
I never seen it coming. So, but it is what it is. And so that's what the mental side kicked in. Like I said, I give myself like 12 hours sort of to get over it. And then after that, I said, look, you have an option. You can let this ruin your life, or you can just fight this as hard as you can. And I decided to fight it. My wife was phenomenal with it. The doctor said to walk as much as you can, and she would make sure she was with me just in case, to be safe.
Yeah.
And she yelled at me one time. I went without her. She tracked me down in the car.
That's a good wife, man.
Yeah. So what are you doing? But so the mental side had to kick in real hard, and done feeling sorry for myself and figure out what I wanted, and I was very aggressive on getting back on my feet again. So
well, I think again, all that we talked about, I think you had said earlier, recognizing, that moment where your body automatically doesn't want to deal with this change or this adverse situation, that I think because of the strength of your psychology, your brain psychology, all this study kept you in that rational brain and enabled you to get out of that faster and seek solutions rather than fall into that emotional freeze, fight, or flight. Oh, woe is me, or feeling sorry, which you had every right to do.
Right.
Is that fair to say, Mark? That all your work through the years mentally, that brain psychology, help you get out of that faster and up and running and healthy.
There's no question about that. Just from the studies, what I read, and my fascination with it. It hands down, it helped me. I think because when you see a lot of heart attack patients, they literally they get worse before they sort of get a long time. They get worse before they're starting to get better.
Yeah.
I didn't want that. My goal was to be up and moving as soon as possible, and whatever it took to do, I was willing to do. Look, that was change in my life.
Yeah.
Okay. And I either had to accept that change and move on, or not accept it, and then who knows where I would have been right now. But that's why we talk about change. If you want something to change, you have a heart attack.
Yeah.
That really changed the way you look at things. So that's when I always tell people, embrace change. Embrace change, because all you can really do with it for the most part is grow.
Right.
So
Right. No, I totally agree with that. And again, in this crazy world we're in, listen, folks, Mark survived a massive heart attack, flatlined how many times?
Twice.
Twice. And look at him now, still thriving, still successful, doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu now, right?
Yeah.
Getting
Yeah.
back to normal life. So if Mark can do that, and there's many other stories of people who similar type stories out there, you can definitely survive this whole COVID dynamic. You can definitely survive this crazy, what I call our crazy, fast-paced, high-tech, ever-evolving world. So, but it's about keeping that rational state. Would you say this too, Mark? We're about to close out here. Would you say this too, that, working this rational part of your brain, this brain psychology is working like a muscle, right? The more practice, it doesn't happen overnight, right?
Doesn't happen over. It is just like a muscle. It's one of those things. I always talk about the 3 R's. That I tell our guys, if just like a muscle, you got to do your 3 R's. You got to get your reps in. Okay,
Yeah.
And you get your reps in. You're building your foundation, and if you want to start growing, you got to put some resistance on it. That could be change or whatever. Or
that's where you're truly tested.
Right. And then the part that I think is really, really important is the third R that I call is recovery.
Right.
I don't think enough people understand the importance of recovering, even for in corporate America.
Right.
You hear everybody talking. They work in 80 hours a week, which I don't believe. I don't think anybody works 80 hours a week. If you do, you're making a huge mistake. You're neglecting your friends. You're neglecting your family for a title or money.
Yeah.
But recovery is very, very important. You need your downtime. You need your away time. You need your family time.
Yeah.
And then go back and hit your reps again and put some more resistance on it. And I think those 3 things right there, if you can just follow those 3 things in anything you do in life, you'll be fine.
Yeah, excellent. And I think that ties into training and development in many ways. What are those 3 R's again, Mark?
Reps, resistance, and recovery.
Okay, look at those of you who have been trained in an organization. You're working with a personal coach. The first one, what's the first R again?
Reps.
Reps. I'm connecting the dots now. Reps is like learning a new skill in sales, a 4-step sales process, how to handle an objection, how to be an effective leader. What's the second R, Mark?
Resistance.
Okay, resistance is why you may role play after learning a skill, because you're learning the skill, let's say, of handling an objection, but actually role playing it is getting that resistance Mark's talking about. So you're practicing those skills in real world environments, right, Mark? And that's when the learnings stick. It's not just you learn these 3 steps and it's been nice today. Don't let the door hit you in the butt. You take those 3 steps of handling objection, whatever that might be, and then practice that in real world environments. Then it sticks. Then you're using it. And that's the athletic correlation Mark's talking about with our world. So any skill you're learning, you've got to put that skill in real practical experience, because that's when life hits. That's when adversity strikes. That's when things don't go exactly as you want. That when you have a difficult customer, difficult employee, difficult colleague, what skills and learnings can you fall back on to help you use and succeed in that difficult situation? That's the only place we're going to grow ourselves, right, Mark? It's not just enough we know the skill or know how to handle something. We've got to actually practice that as well too.
You have to practice. And that, the practice is your repetition over and over again. And then, your resistance comes in. You can be in a sales position and, maybe you're avoiding those really, really tough customers, more high level customers. It might be time to that's your resistance. Go in there, that's the experience. And then you'll be amazed. You're like, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. My worst, my biggest disappointments or biggest difficult scenarios that I've been able to overcome have been my greatest learnings, my greatest success. That's where I've grown the most. I don't necessarily seek out difficult customers or difficult situations, but when I'm in that rational state, I'm now in an open-minded frame of mind where I can learn. I can take a valuable lesson from this. And that's, I think, where we talked about earlier, accepting that adversity is a part of life and acknowledging that this is a chance for us to, again, grow, transform, and evolve. In many ways, that's why this podcast is what it's called, because I want to help, through great interviewers like Mark, help provide insights to help each of you grow, transform, and evolve. Well, we're about to close up here. One of the traditions we do here is something called rapid fire wisdom. So I'm going to throw some questions at Mark. Maybe he can provide some wisdom to you on, and yeah, he's laughing now. He's amazed I'm even asking him such a question, but because we like teasing each other. What's your favorite quote? Give me your favorite quote.
I know you're going to laugh about this, but this is just me. And everyone has a game plan until they get punched in the face by Mike Tyson. I just absolutely love that, and it's so true.
That's right.
You can work hard as you want. You can come up with this elaborate plan, but things happen. Can happen really fast.
Right.
So I'm not saying it's not a bad thing to have this great game plan. Everybody needs a game plan.
Should, right.
But
That's
just
a foundation.
ready for the unexpected.
Exactly.
Things are going to happen that you're not ready for.
Yeah, and that's the key to staying at rational state. If I get punched in the face, as Mike says, in the world, and I get angry about it or I shut down on it, I'm not productive anymore. So staying in that rational state, using this brain psychology we've talked about today is key. What's your favorite book? Is there a motivation book you'd recommend to people that inspired you?
So yeah, I just recently finished it, probably about 2 or 3 months ago, and it's called Resilience by Eric Greitens.
Great word.
And what this book consists of is letters to two Navy SEAL. Now I understand Eric Greitens, he was a Navy SEAL, Oxford, graduate, very well, great background. And basically what it is, it's a variety, it's letters that he was sending to another SEAL who was really struggling with when they got out. And it was just, I thought it was just an absolutely phenomenal book. Hit dead center on everything he talked about. And actually I'm going through it a second time because there's some things in there that, underline, highlight that I can use in my day.
Yeah. Great word. Perfect word for today. And sounds like a perfect book for today too.
Yeah, it's a great book.
What are some things you do in approaching and learning from adversity, change, uncertainty? Is there anything prep work you do for that, or any skills or tools that enable you to be on top of your game when adversity strikes, to give you that kind of cue that, hey, something's happening now, I need to address this? Well,
first, I've come to the point where I don't know what's going to be ahead of me throughout my day. So if something, I don't expect it, but if it does come, I'm ready for it because I know it's part of life. And I think the other thing with me, I am just way more open-minded than I used to be in the past. And maybe that comes with age.
Well, I can share that one for sure.
Yeah, I know you're going to ding me on that one, but really, truly, I'm much more open-minded, and I'm able to look at things a little bit differently than I used to. And I think it just made me more productive because everybody's different. Everybody has their own unique things and how they do things. And instead of that sort of militant approach with it, I mean, in that approach you need it sometimes, but not all the time.
Exactly.
And so you need to be very flexible on how you do things. And I've become more open-minded, more flexible with people, and trying to understand their why.
Yeah.
Just like we had talked about earlier, why are you doing this? Explain this to me. So
yeah, exactly. So what's a helpful, what's a recommended important developmental skill you recommend people learn that can help them not just survive these crazy times, but thrive in them?
Well, I mean, I could tell you that I think what people need to understand, if you would ask in relation to that, if I would ask you this question, what do you think is the most important commodity in life right now? What would your answer be? It's your answer. There's not right or wrong.
Yeah. You're asking me that.
I'm asking you, yes.
Your time.
Okay. And that's the answer I get from 9 out of 10 people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I look at it a little bit differently. I believe energy is more important than time. Okay. If you forget, we go through these training programs, and you might learn it from A to Z, and you're tight with it, you understand it. But if you don't have the energy to actually go out and do it, does it really mean much?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think energy, when you look at the way, especially in this fast-paced world, I mean, it's full throttle all the time. So you have to develop some type of energy, and again, that's where the recovery comes in on the 3 R's.
Yeah. Well, leading to that, great lead into that, what is a helpful hobby that you use to decompress or relax? Final question.
People are going to find this weird, but my meditation, I'm no good at it. I'll admit that. I've tried
It's
it.
not weird at all. Okay.
Yeah, but some people are very, very good at it, and I'm sort of jealous of them. But believe it or not, going for a run, a nice pace recovery run, and it just makes me feel physically good. It makes me feel mentally good. And I think about the things that I'm not out to break the 5-minute mile by any means. I'm not out to break the 8-minute mile.
Well, let's preface this too. You've run several marathons too, right, Mark?
I've ran 4 marathons.
Yeah, there you go. That's another credential I forgot to mention.
Yeah, so it's just nice as me getting out and getting my blood flowing, and that's where that's my meditation. That's where I think about my day. I think about what I want to do the following week. Things I need to clean up and work on. And by the time I get done running, I have this just feeling like, wow, I accomplished a lot.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my getaway. Some people they want to go for a walk. Just go for a walk. Don't listen to any music. Just think.
Do whatever works best for you.
Whatever works best for you, exactly.
Yeah. And that's not silly about the difficulties of meditation. I think slowing the mind down is probably the most difficult. I'm like that, slowing my mind down.
I struggle.
My mind races. Yeah, and meditation's a great way to slow that mind down. Hence, it's a very hard skill to learn. I try to practice that myself. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
So that's something with practice too.
I think a good thing is too, get involved in some type of breathing exercises. That really lessens your anxiety. I'm going, who knows where this come from, but I'm going through this stage where I'm having these anxiety attacks, these panic attacks, and they're not good. They don't feel good at all. They're horrible. And luckily I got on with this company called Free Spira. They sent me a device, and they're teaching me basically how to breathe again.
Wow.
Yeah. And my anxiety levels have dropped dramatically from using this device. So, it's one of those things that a lot of people don't even think of. I'm a chest breather, and that's not good. I need
breathe
to
from the stomach.
Breathe from my stomach, and it really lessens your anxiety. So if you're anxious, you can go on YouTube and find several breathing techniques. And I would try that, if you're a little anxious.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Any final things you want to share with the audience?
Look, you don't know what's ahead of you. Don't plan for the worst, because you may never come. You know what I mean? I'm a real big advocate of mindfulness these days, and being present with where I'm at right now. And like many others, my mind was a week, 2 weeks, a month ahead, a year ahead. I never was in present. I'm never enjoying what's around me. And there's a lot of great things. I have a lot of great friends. I have a great wife. I have a great job. I have a great career.
Gratitude.
Just have gratitude for what you have at this point. Yeah.
It's funny. The thing I learned most from this whole COVID dynamic, which kicked off about a year now, very close to now, seeing the stock market crank, seeing me lose a bunch of proposals, a hell of a great year, disappearing in front of my eyes. Looking at where I was then, and you and I talked about, I may have my first panic attack at that time too. But as I look back now, things are actually better now than they were then. And I've learned the value in many facets of my life. Sure. And I've learned my business is kicking back. My health's great. Financial things are great. Everything's great. And the biggest thing I learned about this whole COVID dynamic, kind of tying in what you're saying, is number one, all that worry was unfounded, was worthless.
Correct.
That I had.
Yeah.
Number two, to enjoy each day to the max. And I did that during that COVID time. I just try to make the best out of each day. And it's weird. It's almost as though that adverse situation forced me into that, living each day in the moment, enjoying taking the best out of each day and being grateful for what it had to offer. So as things kick up and speed up again, I've got to remind myself of that, right? Fall back on that gratitude, enjoy each day, because it's a gift. And someone like you who had that life-changing experience would know better than anybody. So.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think when you look at this COVID thing, a lot of us have been broken. And I said, I think we're at our best when we've been broken, because now we sort of, rephrase everything on, what's important and what's not important. And I think a lot of us has learned a lesson. And I think for the most part, a lot of us had done very well with, at least my neighbors, they had a rally, they had kids, and with the schools and everything. And So yeah, I think they're very appreciative of, what they've learned over this.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's what we can
so,
take away from it. What are the lessons learned and how can we move
right.
forward from those lessons? Well, thanks, Mark. One of the traditions here is my biggest takeaway from today. And it is this: do not underestimate the brain, the power of the mind, the power of the brain.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's whether an athlete, so many athletes, or how many gifted athletes have you seen out there that the mental side falls out of bed and they don't maximize their performance? Right.
Yeah.
Look at leaders, so this brain functionalities, brain psychology piece is bigger, in my opinion, now more than ever, because again, it's fast-paced, high-tech, ever-evolving world we're in. So I want to thank Mark as our guest. Fantastic show, episode number 2. Stay tuned for another episode a week from today. And with that said, I want to sound off. Thanks, Mark, for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, Steve.
Great insights. And I hope to have you on again, because there's a lot more we can talk about as well, too.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking to you.
Excellent. Yeah, for the first time ever, he's enjoyed talking to me. So,
yeah.
Thanks for the time, and everybody have a great day.
Thank you.